This is going to change the way you look at supplements forever. I would bet that your supplement collection looks exactly like mine. Pre-workout, stem, no stem, creatine, glutamine, and of course protein. A lot of protein. And up until recently, I would have said no matter the category of supplement, they're all fairly similar. They have small tweaks in their formulation, and the only real noticeable differentiator is taste. But then I fell down a rabbit hole of class action lawsuits, FDA-requested recalls, and analytical testing, and realized to this day, this is still one of the most corrupt and unregulated industries there is. Come on! How bad is it? Well, in 2024, last year, a company came out with a mushroom chocolate bar. And it contained lion's mane, reishi, CBD, very mundane ingredients, and they marketed it as a psychedelic microdosing of mushrooms. The problem is they also snuck in actual psilocin, which is a controlled one psychoactive substance, as well as a synthetic psilocin, and on top of that, sprinkled in a prescription anticonvulsant just for the hell of it. 73 hospitalizations and 3 deaths later, it's off the market. I just picture somebody's grandma getting a hold of one of these things and flipping out, microwaving the cap. The problem is anybody can play this game. The fact that Amazon now requires third-party testing doesn't really mean shit, because it's not hard to get a high-quality benchtop sample made, submit that for testing, get the certificate, and use that same batch number on a lower-quality product. That means that uncle of yours that used to make meth out of the bathtub can now repurpose it and use it to produce magnesium L-threonate. My goal with this video is obviously to call out any sneaky bullshit some of these companies are still pulling to this day. But even more important than that, I would like to come up with a strategy that helps me make better decisions in terms of what supplements are good and which ones are hot garbage. Because right now, I'm in the dark just like you. Who fucking knows? Let's start this off with the $22 billion global market of protein fuckery. We all remember back in 2015, 2016, several companies got caught for spiking their protein. That's one of them. Either sprinkling in some free-form amino acids, or even worse than that, adding non-protein containing nitrogen compounds, i.e. creatine. Real dick moves. But nobody really does that stuff anymore, right? Actually, maybe. Here's a study from 2021 that looked at 20 different commercial protein powders, and all of them had lower than labeled amounts of protein, ranging from 47% all the way down to 7%. Some of my more hardcore analytical nerd friends might say, well, the method they used often underpredicts the amount of protein because it has a hard time with hydrolyzed and free-form amino acids. But if we pair that study with this 2024 study that also found lower than expected grams of protein per serving, that then used an HPLC to detect the typical types of protein found in whey, and those were also a hell of a lot less than they should be. If these proteins truly contained a standard whey, then the total should be anywhere from 3 to 4 milligrams per milliliter. The highest of all of these, why? Why would you do that? So either we're bringing back the good old days of screwing people like it's 2015, or there is an egregious problem with the protein manufacturing process as a whole. And I know there's going to be a comment that says, yeah, that's why I only eat whole food. Cool. It's nothing more hardcore than an intra-workout chicken breast, but you still have to admit there'd be times when it would be more optimal to have a protein powder that you could trust. And this brings up an important point that I haven't heard anybody talk about, because most people don't have the same Asperger's-fueled ADD that I do. And that's the fact that up to this point, we've just been talking about the quantity of protein in these products, but not the quality. To do that, we have to get into a little bit of basic chemistry. Some of you may have heard of the Maillard reaction, and if not, just think of it as the browning effect when you're cooking a steak. It's when simple sugars react with amino acids. The reason this is important to us is because the essential amino acid lysine has 2 amino groups, one of which being a more reactive epsilon amino group, and when that reacts with a simple sugar, it becomes unavailable. The reason we could care less about this when it comes to something like a steak is because steak is a muscle, and there's very little simple sugars in a muscle, except for the small amount of glucose that's stored as glycogen, but in protein powders, there could be a very little or a shitload of lactose. The spray drying process that all protein goes through to go from a paste-like substance, like the delicious one I used to eat in art class, to a dry powder that hides the scooper is hot enough to induce the Maillard reaction. But they also found another thing that can induce that reaction is just sitting on the shelf for long periods of time. So that protein you've had for 4 years in your cabinet probably not doing so great. The key thing I want you to take away is there is a significant correlation between the amount of carbohydrates in the protein powder and the amount of blocked lysine. Now, is blocked lysine the end of the world? No, but it does help us make better decisions going forward. For instance, I'll never buy a concentrate again, no matter how well they market it, and stick to isolates, hydrosylates, and caseins that have the least amount of carbohydrates. Give me 0. And some people might say, well, aren't those more processed? Isn't that bad? No, you dumb mother. Processing, refinement, and even the denaturing of protein isn't a bad thing. Technically, that's just the unfolding of the protein from its 3D structure, and it's still 100% bioavailable. The best analogy I can give you is, I'm sure you've seen those guys in remote African tribes that take their dick, wrap it around a stick, and stretch to the floor, and then wrap it around themselves like a belt. At the end of the day, it's still a dick, even though it functions as a belt. It's never a bad idea to choose a supplement based upon whether or not they have a certification, whether it's a USP or the harder to get NSF. But the more analytical chemists I talk to, just because they met the standard to get the certification doesn't mean they uphold the standard. Yes, NSF certifications have annual check-ins to make sure the standards are still in place, but not to go full conspiracy theorist on you. Even though these certifications appear to be a consumer-friendly business looking out for you and me, they get paid by the companies to put their logo on the bottle. So it makes sense to just keep letting them fuck up. And if you think that's crazy, go look up the companies that have lost their NSF certification. Don't worry, I'll wait, because you won't find any. So even though there's hundreds of products every year that get recalled because they suck, and it wasn't hard to find that one of those was also NSF certified, so it begs the question, what happened there, bud? Which brings us to our next category of deceit that I'm gonna call bullshit science. And I'm not even talking about anything like the O'Hearn duck eggs. It goes beyond that. I'm talking about when a company uses terms like clinically proven or science-backed to promote their product when the evidence for the ingredient at best is conflicting. The testosterone boosting market is full of this. Of the 109 supplements that have all been marketed as having the ability to increase your total testosterone, only 27 actually have evidence to show that they truly can. And of those 27, 15 also have evidence that shows they either have no effect or can decrease your testosterone. So that sucks. For example, even if we look at a supplement with good supporting evidence around it, like Tomcat Ali, when you look at the 5 most prominent studies and average out the total testosterone increase, it's only around 77 nanograms per deciliter. And if you're wondering why somebody who actually takes testosterone would care about this, it's because I see commercials with Doug Flutie, who said his life was falling apart before he took a supplement like this, and now he's happier than ever and he's Eiffel Towering girls with Frank Thomas every night. It gives false hope to men with real hypogonadism. The worst abuser of bullshit science is a company that constantly emails me trying to pay me to promote their products, which I assume will stop after this, is AG1. Their website is full of percentages from in vitro studies that don't mean shit. And the only double-blind, placebo-controlled trial they've done sucks all the dicks. Even with them putting as much spin as they could on the results, the best they could say was that 2 of the probiotics were able to survive the GI passage and reach the large intestine. To put it plainly, you're able to ingest their product, which has those 2 probiotics in it, and you're able to shit them out. Congratulations, you've made corn. Everything from your mouth to your asshole is still considered the outside world. The only thing that matters is what you pull in or what becomes part of your system. Another category we have to talk about is one that I call sneaky, sneaky bastards. This is when companies fail to disclose an ingredient that most people wouldn't give 2 shits about, but for some reason, they hide it anyways. A good example of this is Element. They said they had 4 milligrams of maltodextrin in their product, but it turns out after a little analytical testing, they have up to 550 milligrams, and they hide it in the natural flavoring. Now, I don't really give a shit about an extra 2 calories. It's the fact that they lied, because they're basically just selling us a delicious salt because the magnesium and potassium levels are completely off. So I know you're making a huge margin. You could at least get it right without sneaking in some other shit. And when you read their response, it was just, oops. What this actually does is highlight a bigger issue that a lot of people are going to start to figure out, that I found out when I tried to develop my own supplements, is that if you want something to taste good, you have to hire a third-party company to come in and develop a flavor system for your product. And you don't have to label that as shit. That can just be under artificial or natural flavoring. And they can put in whatever the hell they want. There could be a guy in the factory line that just drops his balls in every jug just to zest it up. Or they hide in some sort of maltodextrin. You get the point. So after all of that, it begs the question, how in the hell are we supposed to figure out what supplements are any good? I had somebody reach out and say, you should check out Now Supplements, because they do this kind of analytical testing as well, and they turn in companies that fail. But that's like somebody's little brother who tattletales all the time. And the more I looked into it, they've also failed tests. So all they're really doing is saying, hey, you should go check out that company, they suck, when in reality, they suck as well. I like the idea of consumer labs, but they test things that none of us would ever take. Have you ever heard of that? What is that? What is that? So I was gonna end this video by saying, sorry, I failed. There's no way to even know. No one's coming for you. But just by a stroke of dumb luck, I got connected to a startup that I think is gonna change everything. Running these analytical tests on the supplements that we all use, putting it inside an app, and there is no subscription, paywall, bullshit like that. It's gonna be live in 2 months. And the best part is they said, ask your community what you want us to test, and we'll test it. So I'm gonna put a link below to a form, and you tell me what protein powders, pre-workouts, creatine, gas station boner pills that are probably hiding some sort of Viagra in them. We're gonna blow these companies up. They are gonna be pissed. Also, something that I didn't even mention, heavy metals testing. Wouldn't you guess one of the companies I talked about earlier failed said test? You guys are